The African Union has suspended Niger from all of its institutions and activities following last month's coup until the effective restoration of constitutional order. The union also told its members to avoid any action that might legitimize the junta. The coup last month has caused alarm among Western allies and democratic African states who fear it could allow terror groups active in the Sahel region to expand their reach and give Russia a foothold to increase its influence. The AU Peace and Security Council said in a communique that it had noted the decision to activate an ECOWAS standby force and asked the AU Commission to assess the economic, social, and security implications of deploying such a force. It reiterated the calls on the coup leaders to immediately release elected President Mohamed Bazoum, who has been detained since the coup, and return to their barracks. Meanwhile, ECOWAS envoy to Niger Republic says there are hopes of a diplomatic solution to the political standoff in the country without necessarily resorting to the use of force. Nigeria's former military president, Abdulsalami Abubakar, spoke after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu where he briefed him on the outcome of his mission to the landlocked West African country. General Abubakar, retired, had met with the military coup leaders and the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum after the first effort failed due to the resistance put up by the country's military. The ECOWAS envoy said the announcement of a 3-year transition plan by the military junta is solely their position, but he believes President Bola Tinubu, as chairman of ECOWAS, will consult with other members of the Authority of Heads of State, and talks will also continue towards resolving the standoff.
Like I said, we started talking. We made their own points. And then I made my report to the chairman of the ECOWAS Heads of State and President. He will now consult with his colleagues, and then the ding-dong starts, and we'll get somewhere, hopefully. Hopefully, diplomacy will see the better of this thing. Nobody wants to go to war. It doesn't pay anybody, but then again, you know, our leaders have said, if all fails, and I don't think all will fail, we'll get somewhere. We'll get out of this mess.
Thank you.
General Abubakar Abdulsalami, retired, speaking there. He was a member of the envoy that went to Niger to have that conversation, diplomatic conversation with the coupist in Niger. And he is hopeful that there wouldn't be a military action, that a military action would be needed because of the conversation. He believes that little results is coming out of that conversation. But then we are seeing a different twist to what is happening in Niger. Reports say the Wagner Group has deployed some military warfare materials there. And but then we also hear that AU has imposed sanctions on Niger, and I'm wondering why it is coming now. To me, it is late, so to speak. If the AU, you know, for some time, the AU has been said not to be asserting itself when it comes to countries, member countries, and coming a month after the coup, I'm wondering what message, how much impact you think you sanctioning Niger now will have on what is already going on the ground in Niger. Why didn't you step out first to say, okay, you know what, even before ECOWAS, you know, placed a sanction, even though that was said to have been hasty by ECOWAS, what have you done? Did you engage the coupists to understand what the issues are? Why are you just coming out now to impose sanctions? That's my perspective with regards to what EU has done.
Well, there's a lot of, you know, when it comes to coup in Africa, it's coup anywhere, those international communities, they will always, you know, some will take very swift reaction, just like we've seen ECOWAS done so far. And we'll see some other international communities trying to be calculative. They will always want to check, okay, what are the actions that we need to take? They will also have their own meetings and all of that. So I feel it's better late than never. The fact that AU is, talking, it seems like they're talking tough, but not as tough as the way ECOWAS has been, doing, threatening threatening war. You made allusion to the Wagner Group, also showing solidarity with Niger. Burkina Faso and Mali are also interested in, supporting Niger against this. But, how effective has, AU sanctions, been? They've always, Niger so far, they've always experienced, different military coups. They had one in 2010. But Mauritania, for instance, AU sanctioned Mauritania in 2008 when there was coup, and they removed them from being member of the AU. They forced them. They had conversations, but they imposed sanctions on them to return to democratic rule, which later was restored, in 2008. The same thing, Guinea experienced 2008 military coup, and in 2021 they also experienced military coup. So 2 coups like that, AU sanctioned them. They took a stand, and they also ensured that they returned to democratic
In fact,
rule.
between the year 2000 and 2022, AU have sanctioned countries about 20 times, 15 member states.
So it can be said that they are not really working.
Yes, we are not saying they are not working. We are saying assert
the swiftness
yourself. The swiftness with which you react to some of these issues is what people are saying. Africans have been talking about AU. Oftentimes, we see crisis in countries. For instance, the Sudan crisis. We did not see much from the AU with regards to having conversations, with regards to countries from other member countries that are, living in Sudan, how they were able to withdraw them out of, Sudan when the crisis was at its peak. You had to see individual countries were making efforts, but AU was there. What were they doing? These are the issues that we're talking about. What could they have done differently to ensure that member countries had easy way out of Sudan when the crisis was at its peak? These are the issues. We're not saying AU is not doing anything, but asserting yourself, doing the needful when it should be done.
Right, AU is AU with all the member countries. So they can't, it's not just AU on its own. It's all about the willingness of the members of the AU, member countries of the AU.
Yeah, member countries. How are you having conversations with them? A country was having an issue.
Right.
And for instance, Nigeria was having a challenge, bringing back its citizens. So what could the AU have done to call, Sudan, its authorities, to say, make it easy for member states to pull out their citizens?
I think that's where Africa needs to, really broaden their diplomatic relations. They need to broaden conversations as regards how do we forestall? Because if coups have been happening over the years, and then it kept happening, even in this day and age, we're not supposed to be experiencing coups because it causes a lot of political instability, and it affects a lot of people in terms of, that's why I'm so sorry for those who are showing solidarity for Niger, the coupists, the Nigerians who are showing solidarity for them, because if they know the implication, everyone can talk. We are having our access to the media. We have our fundamental human rights. There, if anyone speaks against the coupists, then they should know that their fundamental rights will be trampled upon. And they don't have free speech. It's not possible. So they can guarantee freedom before speech, but freedom after speech is not something you can guarantee in a military
yesterday we're still
era.
saying that perhaps those who were showing solidarity, that it was staged.
Of course. You can't have
and then
the
you mentioned
temerity.
something, knowledge.
Yeah.
How many of them understand what it is like, when you have a military in power, when you have the military in power? Do they know what it is? Have they experienced it? Many of them may not have, so they wouldn't really understand what it is, the kind of interruption it brings to their lives. So until they have that knowledge, they would support or show solidarity for the coupists as it is. But then what happens afterwards? Well, we hear the envoy, General Abdusalam Abubakar, retired, mentioned he's hopeful that the conversations will continue with the coupists because of the little results they have achieved so far. If ECOWAS will have that conversation to ensure that they send another delegation to Niger, it's left to be seen, because he just came back with the report to give, the ECOWAS chair, talking about President Tinubu. Now he will have to meet with the heads of states and to determine what next step to take. But they have said that, military action is the last resort.
Right.
Is the last resort if all fails.
If all fails. So the AU sanctions, it's just like I was saying, it's dependent, it's based on different diplomatic and varied efforts, such as the regional dynamics. How exactly are they playing all of this power along the countries, international consensus, and the strategic importance of the country in question. Because if the country is very, very important to the well-being of the African Union itself, they will have to be very careful. For instance, what happened in Zimbabwe in 2017, they didn't really call it a coup as such, but they were diplomatic in coming into the political affairs, where they tried not to give credence to the coup staged against Mugabe, but they also involved themselves in transitioning to democratic rule, when because a lot of things are actually happening, and so many things will happen backstage.
Absolutely.
So they will always be very careful in taking different actions or taking different sanctions, because at the end of the day, people will still be they are still the people. They are still the one in the center of it all. We see what is happening in 7 Nigerian states following the sanctions by ECOWAS, Sokoto, even Nigerians themselves, and some other states in Nigeria, in the north, where they are already reeling from the impact of these sanctions, because people are not able to move freely the way they used to move, the trade, and things going so bad. Farm produce also going so bad. I read about some millions of naira that have been lost as a result of these sanctions. So, it's all about, being calculated.
I believe ECOWAS would understand what step to take when they meet, now that they have gotten a report from the envoy that had a conversation with the coupists. So they would look at it critically to determine what best step to take. As it is, we see the Wagner group already, and that is changing the dynamics to the whole matter in Niger. And so everyone will have to take care or be very careful with regards to what decisions they take as
War
it
is not
is.
desired at all. It's not.
Let's
It's not desired.
yes, let's leave the conversation here now.